So today I will talk to you about if the banking is a friend or a foe. So why am I so negative? What is it really happening on the market? Why I'm having even this conversation with you now to highlight the issues with the banking. Don't forget, old is gold. So if you have a good service provider who you're happy with, stick to it and don't let them go, because sometimes it's actually better to work with that what you have. We can carry on with my presentation. I mentioned a couple of words about myself at the beginning of the seminar. My name is Viktoria Soltesz, and I will talk to you about the banking situation. We need to see if the banks that we are working with, are they our friends or are they our enemies actually. So today I will talk to you about if the banking is a friend or a foe, and I will tell you a bit more information about how to optimize your relationship with your payment providers. It's quite a very current subject because as I can see that the banking requirements are getting stricter and stricter nowadays. So I'm trying to shed some light on this subject today with you in this short half an hour that we have. But first of all, a couple of words about myself. My name is Viktoria Soltesz, and I started up as an accountant many moons ago in Cyprus. Actually, I still have my accounting, audit and fiduciary service company. You can find more information on that at viktoriasoltesz.com. And during my time as an accountant, I started to work with higher risk clients, Forex companies, gambling companies, or just high net worth individuals, whereby the banking was always the question. I always get a lot of requests about compliance and how to give information to the banks. So then I thought out that I will start PSP Angels, which is actually a payment consulting firm, which is concentrated more on the online businesses. I'm sure that you know that if you're selling anything online services, then you are more likely that to be considered as high risk. So that's the logo of my company, PSP Angels. Then we realized that there are actually a huge need when it comes to iGaming and gambling, because the regulation is changing all the time. So I partnered up with Oxygia Consulting here in Malta. So we are giving payment advice, payment consulting services specifically for the iGaming and gambling industries. And in the meantime, I'm also a member of the director chambers here in Malta. I'm usually present in Cyprus, Malta, and Hungary. Before this virus hit, I was traveling around the world. And in my free time, I'm enjoying painting, and I have also a cooking channel on Instagram, but this is not the subject of today's presentation. Just a short notice, PSP that I'm referring to, which is the name of my company as well, it's actually the payment service provider. So if you hear the shortening, refer to the payment service providers. So let's go through really quickly of what exactly that we do. We are trying to help online businesses to collect money from their customers. It should be easy, right? But unfortunately, it's not always the case. We are dealing with high-risk industries, as I mentioned, so we cover cryptocurrency exchanges. We are helping CBD or medical marijuana clients. We are also dealing with adult content merchants, also travel, education, surprise, surprise, these are also high-risk industries. And we are trying to help every online business really to collect money from their end users. It's a very easy thing to remember, because when you're setting up a website and you're trying to collect money from your end users, you need some kind of payment service providers to make sense of that 16-digit card number, what you receive, right? So in case that I give you my 16-digit card number, you cannot really charge my bank as a person, as an individual, or as a normal company how to get your money. You need a payment service provider. And And it's more current than ever because now with this pandemic virus situation, unfortunately, all the companies are forced to act online, sell the services, sell the products online. So it looks like that everybody is online now, and the payment service providers and banks are obviously overloaded with the application, which is just adds salt to the wound already. So my personal purpose, what makes me wake up every morning, is that I try to help to my clients to, first of all, save time. Time is very precious now. Even nowadays, I wish that the day has more than 24 hours in it. I try to optimize their risk. It's a very, very important thing that I'm surprised to see that not many companies are handling the risk as much as they should pay attention to it. And obviously, we are trying to reduce the cost when it comes to banking and payment processing as well. My personal motto is that I believe that everybody should spend their money however they want to, obviously within reasonable limits, but this is what I'm standing for, and that's what I'm helping my clients to achieve. So why am I so negative? What is it really happening on the market? Why I'm having even this conversation with you now to highlight the issues with the banking. So first of all, we know that we are forced to use banks. There are multiple ways to collect money from our clients, but our whole economy is based on using the bank's services. So we are actually forced to deal with them, either we like it or not. However, banking is now a tool for the government to regulate certain activities. When we are talking about money laundering, it's obvious that the banks have the responsibility to filter out certain activities, which forces obviously everyone in the society to play within the rules. But also the government is using the banking as another tool to regulate the people to pay the relevant taxes. They need to have this information about the money movements on the account. The government needs to know how many bank accounts you have. So basically the banks and the payment institutions are now responsible for all the activities that they are handling. Hence, they've got the regulation and obviously the license. So the bottom line is that the banks and these payment service providers are the ones who will get the penalty if we do something wrong. So if I'm sending money to an area where I'm not supposed to, or I'm paying an invoice incorrectly, or the money moves in my account in a way that I'm not paying tax after that, obviously the banks and the payment service providers should notice this activity and they should report it back to the government and the regulator. If they don't do that, they will get the penalty. So what happens is that the banks are making us pay for the higher fees of their compliance because they need to check everything more throughout. They need to pay the penalty. They need to bear the risk of costing more, of having us as the client. And remember the good old times when we just said that, oh, I've got some money, let's put that in the fixed deposit account and earn some money on the interest. Unfortunately, it's no longer the case in many, many areas in the world. We are facing negative interest instead of having interest on our deposits. And this shows that the tables have turned. The more money we have in the bank sometimes costs us more money than actually having this money invested elsewhere. And until now, we thought that the banks are the safest place for our money. As a person, I wouldn't say that anymore. Unfortunately, everything has its own risk. But bottom line is banking relationship nowadays is built on trust. And unfortunately, what I can see, the prices are very subjective. Of course, if you're going to high street banks who are dealing with multiple clients, you've got a price list and this is the take it or leave it. However, we see that smaller e-money institutions, payment institutions, or any other personal banking products or services, if the volume is good, and obviously if the risk is desired by the compliance of the bank, the prices could be negotiable. And that's why it's very important that you understand that the banks are also businesses. So they need to optimize their profit compared with the risk that you as a client imposes on their compliance. So the banks should be our best friends, and we need to work with them, as I mentioned at the beginning, that we are forced to use banks. So might as well make them our best friends and make them help us, make them work for us, and see how we can work together as a team instead of try to work against them, because obviously they are the bigger fish. They will eat us at the end, and they will eat us at the end. We need to know that there is always a risk when you are moving money around or having money on any kind of bank account. You need to understand that there is always a risk, and as a business owner, you need to consider this when you're planning. I remember back at the day when I was working in a shipping company, and the ship owner, gentleman that I had a meeting with one day, he told me that compliance, what compliance? I don't care about the compliance. Tell these banks that I'm the customer, I can take my money elsewhere. And back at the days, it was something that we had leverage. And we called the banks, and I remember we threatened Bank of Cyprus that if you don't accept this document, we are taking our money somewhere else. But after that, we realized a couple of years later that the same requirements are coming from every angle. It doesn't matter where you're keeping the money. It doesn't matter what is the color and the name of the bank. They are making us feel the same documents, and they are asking for the same invoice and the same agreement. So the laugh is not on us anymore, actually. Now the bankers are laughing about this. As I mentioned earlier, the tables have turned, and the bankers have more powers over us instead of the other way around, unfortunately. So imagine this scenario. Tomorrow, you try to log in at your company account, but you find out that the account is frozen. Just hold on for a second here. What do? Obviously, immediately you call your bank. What is going on? Why I cannot access the money? What's happening? And they say, I'm sorry, it was a mistake, yes. But the compliance takes 2 weeks to correct the mistake. How deeply will this impact your operation? How much does it break you as a business? How much risk does it impose on you to pay your suppliers? How much of a reputational damage is this to collect money from your customers? So what can we do? We need to plan, and we need to plan, and we need to plan some more. So we need to see, first of all, step by step, how to make the perfect plan and how to mitigate the risk as much as we can. First, we need to start with the cash flow health check. First of all, how do your clients like to pay? Do they like to pay with bank transfer? Do they use top-up cards? Do they use vouchers? Do they use mobile payments? Do they like to walk into a shop and pay with cash? What is their preferred payment method? They are your clients. They should tell you what are the preferred payment methods that they want to use, that they feel comfortable with. Different areas obviously have different preferred payment methods. So this is something that you need to check, first of all, with your marketing department. And obviously the management needs to make an informative decision of what is the best way to collect money from your customers. Also, where your funds come from. Where is your target market? Now everybody is online. Maybe you started to target Poland, but turns out that Finland has a very, very big appetite for your products and services. So you need to understand what is the preferred payment methods in Finland to be able to serve your customers in the best possible way. Also, you need to see if you are trading internationally, what is the currency that comes to your account? Do people like to pay you in dollars? Are you only trading in Europe? Do they pay you in euro? Do you have any customers maybe in Asia? Are they in Africa? What is the currency that you get? Because obviously there's a foreign exchange cost as well that you need to think about. And also, how often do they pay you? Do you have a lot of little customers who are paying you 20, 30 euros that we can see, for example, in the gambling clients? Or they pay you a big lump sum amount when we are talking about Forex or any other investment companies? The payments are normally less regular, but higher in volume. Also, you need to see where you send out your funds, who are your suppliers, how you pay your salaries, how do you pay your office expenses, how do you pay your dividends to the shareholders. So the money inflow is just one side of the coin, but obviously where you send out the funds, is it the same currency, is it the same route, is it the same everything. Also, you need to see how many accounts do you have. Remember that exercise when I asked you that what would happen if that account gets frozen? What would you do? Also, needless to say, you need to consider your tax implications, where the money is coming from, what is the VAT on that, where does it go, what is the dividend tax, where is the shareholder, how do they get the money, how do you get the money out of the company, how do you pay your suppliers, and so on and so forth. Very important, all goes down to how much money you pay for the bank. What are the banking fees, monthly fees, account opening fees, management fees, what other fees the payment service provider charges you, and you need to see, of course, what are your future plans. Because right now, I'm happy, I've got the perfect setup for Europe, but next year I'm really trying to reach out to Thailand. So you need to act now. You need to plan now for the future to understand that in the future, in the near upcoming future, when you are actually opening up your new markets in Thailand, how will you collect the money? What is the currency that you collect? How often do you collect it? What are the tax implications? And so on and so forth on your future market. So needless to say that the goal here is to, first of all, increase the transfer speed, because unfortunately we are still working with banks when it takes 3 to 5 days to receive one transfer through the SWIFT network, mainly when we are talking about international trade. You need to improve the overall cash flows. And I'm not just talking about accounting cash flows, I'm talking about the real actual cash flow, how the money comes in and how does it leave you. You need to reduce your risk. And obviously the cost. We are running a business, we try to be as profitable as possible. And we always need to create backup plans. If something goes wrong, and trust me, we are living in the real world, so something will go wrong, you need to have a backup plan. So the situation when the bank closes the account on you is not going to give you a heart attack. So this is what we do as payment consultants. We understand where the money is coming from, where does it go, how often does it come, what is the currency, and all that aspects that I mentioned previously. So we see, and it's really beneficial for bigger groups, if you have multiple companies, how your card acquirers are paying out to you, what the bank accounts do you have, how the money moves in and out of the companies, between each company, how do you pay them out, what are your suppliers, where are these suppliers based, because sometimes, unfortunately, even though that's a very, very important and information, and that's common sense that you need to plan, we see that the risk is not assessed correctly many times, and your company might face significant risks which are completely unnecessary, because with a couple of hour planning, you could really eliminate a lot of headaches in the future. So we need to, first of all, Draw this kind of board to understand the flow of the money. And we need to plan for different alternative routes until we find the perfect route, which we feel comfortable with, which imposes the least amount of risk on our operation. And obviously it reduces the cost to the minimum. Question every single part of this board. Question every angle, question every arrow, and question even the company setups as well. Because sometimes whatever is good for your tax, it might not be very beneficial for banks, because maybe you might be actually better off paying a couple of % more tax, but then you spare the headache and the risk when it comes to the banking. So what you really need to concentrate on is the foreign exchange rate, how to lower your banking costs. Obviously, what is the cost of compliance? And I'm not talking about your internal compliance. I'm talking about that how much do you cost as a customer to the bank? Because that cost of compliance, trust me, is going to be coming out of your pocket in form of banking fees. So if you as a company or even as a person impose a high risk to the bank because they need to do a lot of due diligence on you, they need to check all your documents, they need to understand all your business, and the bank needs to be comfortable with all the payment flows that you do, guess who's going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for the salary of the compliance officer? Obviously, that's why you're facing higher bank fees. As your risk as a client increases, you have to pay, obviously, the bank for their compliance expenses. We need to see the speed of the payment. As I mentioned before, maybe if you are cutting through some corners, maybe if you are directly paying different suppliers through different companies, it can actually increase the speed of the payment. Again, it might reduces the risk. And don't forget, if the money is not with the banks, it can work somewhere else for you. Needless to say, the risk, you need to assess every single risk. Maybe you need to add some numbers, some valuation for the risk, what it imposes on different aspects on your flow chart. And very important to mention this, because I've seen it so many times, and unfortunately I see it more often than I should. Parking funds, there are so many times when there is one bank account where 500,000 is parked, 300,000 is parked. And what we mentioned with Jamie earlier, I'm sure that you remember, the EU banks are taking a guarantee on personal and company funds up to 100,000. So try to avoid parking a lot of funds on one account. Try to avoid accumulating a huge amount of asset on any payment providers or any banks, just to reduce the risk. It is just a so simple practice to implement, but that can, again, reduce your risk significantly. And as I mentioned, always have different backup options. So, maybe we need to change some things. Fine, I realized, okay, I need to do something about it. I need to reduce my risk. I got it all figured out. How to do that? How to apply for new payment providers? First of all, think like a bank. And it's harder than you would think, because the compliance officer somehow seems that they are living in a completely different world than us, unfortunately. So try to think like a bank. Try to convince yourself, imagining that you are a compliance officer who is making decisions on behalf of the bank to take you as a client or not. What is the cost that you impose on the bank? What is the risk that you impose on the bank? So what you need to do, first of all, is to evaluate your current structure. Too many companies, compliance officer will say, I don't know this, I don't like this, I don't understand this, I'm going to reject this. What you face: unnecessary trouble, unnecessary waste of time to face rejections and start from scratch with a new provider. And also you need to to bear all these costs. So try to evaluate your current structure. Don't only include your tax guy on this conversation, but have your payment guy there as well, because now it's a two-way conversation that you need to speak to them. As a rule of thumb, when you are trading in a country, the best and the most cost-effective way is always to have a local office, a local director, keep everything locally. Why? Because if you're trading in Europe and you've got a US company and you've got US payment providers, you're working with US banks, chances are that those US banks won't be able to take the EU cards as effectively as the EU banks would. So keep everything local. If you're trading in EU, have an EU entity, have a local director, have a local office, because then you will be able to build local relationships with the banks who will be able to collect the money more successfully from your clients. Try to avoid the offshore structure simply because the banks cannot do a full due diligence on certain countries. So if you have any offshore structure, any kind of offshore relationship, either bank account and mainly an offshore company, anywhere in the structure, chances are that you are deemed as a high risk as a whole, and you are more likely to get rejected, which is, again, sometimes it's an unnecessary risk. Try not to be a startup, because nowadays everybody is applying for bank accounts and no one really likes the startups. I don't know you, I don't like you, I don't trust you. So try to avoid to be a startup. Always be up to date. You need to understand the market. What products are available for me? What are the customer preferences in different countries that I mentioned? You know, that some people like to pay with mobile money. For example, in Africa, the cards are not very popular. Maybe you need to find alternative methods, what your clients prefer. You need to understand that there are other payment institutions than banks. These could be the e-money institutions, payment institutions, which might not give you the full banking products, but maybe you don't even need them. Have a search about open banking. It's a very, very interesting new technological advancement. You might benefit, and it could be very interesting for you as well. Reach out to foreign exchange providers who are not necessarily banks, but they can spare a lot on the foreign exchange expenses what you have. Think crypto. Even though that if you're not investing any money in cryptocurrency, you should know how does it affect the payments sphere and how it might actually affect your company as well. And always think about the different alternative methods. As I mentioned, there are more than just cash payments in the world. Then get accepted. When you apply for a payment institution, be prepared, get all your documents ready. Be quick when you're replying to the bank's questions, because you're not the only one in the line. So if you're slow, you might fall out. Try to negotiate the fees, because as I mentioned, it doesn't harm to ask, and maybe the fees could be negotiable. And make them compete for you, even though it's hard. But if you are accepted by more than one payment service providers or more than one banks, the bank already spent time and effort to onboard you and run through the compliance. So they would rather drop a couple of basis points on your price just to keep you as a customer, mainly when you're bringing them good volume. That means that they can earn a lot of money on you. So you need to evaluate. Once you get the offers, you need to put it down in front of you and make a decision, because the due diligence is not only on you. You need to make a due diligence on the providers as well. How old is this provider? How long are you on the market, guys? Are you fresh and that's why you're hungry for business and you take everyone, or you are well-established, reasonable payment institutions who are selecting and cherry picking the best clients? So I'm happy to get into. What is the bank or payment institution's client portfolio? Do they deal with a lot of high-risk clients? Because if they do, then there might be someone somewhere along that line who makes something bad, which ruins your activities as well, because at the end of the day, your payment institution might go down and that could affect your business as well. You need to see what is their risk appetite. Do they take you or not? Because if they don't take you, maybe there is no point to apply at all. And how quickly they open the account. And be very careful about this, because if they open the account too quickly, you know the saying, if it's too good to be true, it usually is. And maybe just sniff around a bit. What does your competition use? Piggyback on their time spent on researching the market. See what exactly that they benefit from. Maybe your competition has already figured it all out and they've got the best connection with the best payment providers out there. And also, once you have everything done, you need to balance it. You do have a backup, fine. But which provider gets what traffic? Obviously, if you have a volume, let's say, I don't know, half a million per month, then everybody wants to get that fully. But you need a backup, right? You're not going to channel through 500,000 per month on one provider. You're not crazy. So you need to see that how do you share this between providers? What's the risk versus the benefit and the cost? What you are throwing through these different providers. Always spread the risk, but it's up to you, up to your management to decide what is the percentage, who gets what. And obviously, if you have a backup of a backup, you need to make them happy too. And don't forget, everybody's a human. So the human touch can sometimes move mountains and do absolute miracles. So sometimes it's good to send that flower to your banker, send that chocolate to your payment service provider for Christmas and make everyone happy, because the extra attention is what you get ahead of the competition and perhaps even reduce your fees. Don't forget, old is gold. So if you have a good service provider who you're happy with, stick to it and don't let them go, because sometimes it's actually better to work with that what you have, because as I mentioned at the beginning, the payment institutions and the payment markets are always built on trust. So pay attention to your current providers, obviously current services, but everybody is improving everything. So the things are changing very rapidly. So see what are your current providers' new services and products, and try to build strong relationships, not with just them, but with their partners. Who are they partnering up with? Who are they using? Who are their partners in Asia? I want that to, who are you banking guys in America? Can you introduce me to them? Because if they are already using them, maybe you can cut corners by being introduced to them instead of walking to them from the street, sending an email to info@paymentinstitution.com email address. So that can open doors for you and significantly reduce the time what you spent on that. And the most important thing, use your banking history as your proof. You already know what you're standing for. You know what is the volume that you bring, and you know what good customer you are. You can prove it. Here is my bank statement. I'm happily banking with someone else. Always try to use your processing or banking history as a proof when you try to change something, because that's your basically validation that you are good. And yes, I can completely relate to that as well. The top is the compliance cost and the bottom one is my blood pressure. Yes, this is a very common thing that we see. Before I close my presentation, let me do another game with you guys, a guessing game. What is the risk of having one bank account if your monthly turnover is 500,000? As we mentioned, EU banks only take guarantee up to 100,000 euro on deposits. And e-money institutions have the same guarantee for their overall client base pool. So you need to understand what is the risk, you need to understand what is the cost, and you need to make informative decisions. So bottom line, what we need to do from tomorrow: think ahead, hope for the best, but unfortunately we need to be prepared for the worst. The time is key. Don't spend it if you don't have to. And you will need a payment guy who will guide you through this absolute confusion and absolute mess. You need someone that you can trust, who has a deep industry experience and network, who will navigate you through these hard times. Feel free to reach me at Viktoria@pspangels.com. Hit me up on Skype. I'm here to help, and I'm here to reply to any questions that you might have. And thank you very much for your attention. Right, I can read out a couple of questions what we had at the beginning of the conference. Can you please recommend financial institution on unlocking account UK Limited, where the ultimate beneficial owner is the citizens of Ukraine selling CBD products? Yes, we have multiple options. We obviously need to see the company in depth to be able to determine what provider or providers are the best for you. And definitely we can make some recommendations and some introductions, and we can start the applications on behalf of you, because that's what we do. And there was another question for us, that how to optimize work relations with payment service providers if the licensing of communication services is in the Russian Federation, is carried out by the FSB. Unfortunately, what I can see is that the Russian market now, the financial market, is having a bit of a problem, because many payment service providers just simply refuse to take payments from Russia, given the current political situation. Unfortunately, us business owners are the ones who are suffering these consequences. So what I can advise is that keep an open mind, and maybe you need to expand your business abroad. This is again something that you need to make a decision as a management. But as a rule of thumb, try to keep everything locally. So that means that if you have a lot of paying clients in Russia, it might not be a bad idea to use a Russian provider. Keep all your payments locally, because that will give you the best conversion rate. So that means that out of 10 payments, how many will go through successfully, how many clients are actually will be able to pay you and will not bleed out at the checkout or the card processing solution. So as a normal recommendation, I would say that obviously every case is different, but maybe the first step to do is that try to consider that if you keep the payment provider close to your customers. So if you have customers in Ukraine, try to see with a Ukrainian payment processor, payment provider, and Ukrainian bank. If your clients are from Russia, then what is the popular payment method in Russia? How to collect their money in a most effective way, where they feel most comfortable with. And again, you need to discuss this with your payment consultant. Obviously, that's the best plan ahead, and that's when you get the most effective advice. I think those are the questions that we had. In case that you have any other question, feel free to message obviously me or any of my panelist colleagues. We are very happy to add everyone. I think I'm speaking to on behalf of everyone when I'm saying that we're very happy to add anyone on LinkedIn, at least me. So feel free to shower us with all the questions. We are here to help, and thank you so much for having this discussion. I can see that we have an extra question as well. What are the requirements a registered company in Africa need to have an account with any of your collaborating partner in the banks in Europe? Now, European banks normally have a restriction from the central banks that sometimes they cannot have any kind of relationship with non-European entities. Obviously, there are some exceptions. So we need to see, again, first of all, that what do you try to achieve? You're trying to enter the European market. How much would it cost for you to actually incorporate a company in Europe and move all your operations to Europe? In case it still does not make any financial sense, then we need to evaluate that. What are the payment providers who are still taking your African company to trade in Europe? But in case that it's an African company and you're trading in Africa, maybe you won't even need a bank in Europe. I mean, obviously, it's good to have multiple bank accounts all over the world, but in this case, maybe the costs are overwhelming the benefits. And we need to understand that what is the reason that you need a bank account in Europe. So, as I said, it's case by case, but there are certain requirements for European banks to take non-European clients. We need to see the activity of the company as well as the volume, as well as the cost to make an informative decision. But that's what we are here for. So in case that you would like to have a deeper conversation about this, feel free to email me, and I'm very happy to go through the questions exactly. So thank you very much again, and it was great to be here. Thank you so much for the opportunity for Bosco to have this conference with us, and I'm really looking forward to the next one. And I can't wait until this pandemic is over and I can see everyone face to face again and start the networking again like we did a couple of years ago. Thank you for all the organizers again to organize this amazing event, and thank you for everyone to join us today. See you at the next conference. Thank you.